Is your business about to go up in a puff of smoke? Today we'll be focusing on drug-free workplace programs relating to state laws, changes in state laws, and yes, medical and recreational marijuana drug testing and use and how it affects you and your company. Welcome to the National Drug Screening video blog series. My name is Tom Fulmer. I'm the Business Development Manager of National Drug Screening. Today joining us is going to be our founder and president, Mr. Joe Reilly. He's been an industry expert for over 20 years. He served on the Drug and Alcohol Testing Industry Association Board of Directors, including 4 years as chairman of the board. He's also worked with the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, the Florida Office of Drug Control Policy, as well as many other companies and organizations to establish drug-free workplace programs and policies, as well as testing services to help them stay cutting edge and at the top of their industry. Please welcome Mr. Joe Reilly. So Joe, today we're going to be discussing drug-free workplace policy. So what's your approach when working with a new business that's new to drug testing and they're looking for that drug-free workplace policy?
Well, Tom, the drug-free workplace policy is really so important for a company when they're going to start doing drug testing. And the policy outlines what are the rules and what are the regulations within the company. The policy spells out that the use of illicit drugs is prohibited in the company. And the policy spells out that the use of alcohol while working is prohibited. And very important, the discussion that we have to have with the company always is what are going to be the consequences of violating the policy. Now, sometimes the consequences are immediate termination of employment. But in many cases, the consequences are a second chance, where the company gives the person the opportunity to get help for that substance abuse problem. And then the person has the opportunity to perhaps come back to work. So putting all this in writing in the drug-free workplace program protects the company from liability and it helps them comply with state laws.
Excellent. So that's for a new company. So do you find there's any differences between working with a company that's new to drug testing and one that maybe already has an existing policy?
Yes, I do, Tom. Many companies have a drug-free workplace policy in existence. But oftentimes we find out that it was written 15 years ago. And a lot of things have changed in the drug testing industry from 15 years ago. There's more drugs that we test for today. And the policy might be outdated when it comes to best practices to comply with federal mandates for drug testing. It might be outdated when it comes to compliance with the particular state laws in that particular state. So it is really important that for an existing drug-free workplace policy, we take a look at when it was written, has it ever been updated, and we make recommendations as to let's make some revisions, or maybe let's just start with a brand new drug-free workplace policy.
Right. And one of the things you mentioned were some of the states, the differences between state regulations, and that could apply, I guess, to businesses that have maybe business locations in different states or may just be different states that you're talking to. So can you discuss a little bit about how the state regulations affect that?
Yes, Tom, absolutely. So maybe the drug-free workplace policy was written 15 years ago, and now the company's expanded into 3 additional states that they weren't in 15 years ago. And almost every state in the United States has some type of different state law when it comes to drug testing programs and drug-free workplace programs. Now, some states outline very clearly and very specifically what they consider to be a drug-free workplace program. And so in those states, it's easy. You follow the state law. But of course, you have to know that state law. In other states, there may be some nuances where something might be prohibited or something might be allowed. Some states are vague. So it's really important. Part of the services that we offer at National Drug Screening is that we have a comprehensive database of the laws in every state, and we can provide expert guidance to a company to help them and to write for them a comprehensive drug-free workplace policy and program, and then have addendums or amendments in that program to cover all the states that they operate in.
And that's excellent. I think that's something really important for companies to be aware of. And let's take it to the next step there when we talk about especially some of the things more recently with medical and recreational marijuana. How does that specifically apply to those who are in those states and those who are in states where it's legal versus in states where it's not legal?
That's a great question, Tom. And we've got states like Colorado and Washington State and Oregon, even in Washington, D.C., where we have medical marijuana, and in those states also recreational marijuana. And there's many other states that have medical marijuana, and we see even on the ballots coming up in the next election, we're going to see several additional states adding medical marijuana to their statutes. This is why for any company, for any employer, it is important that they have a comprehensive, up-to-date, drug-free workplace program that recognizes and addresses medical marijuana and recreational marijuana, even if they're not in a state that has those recreational marijuana laws or those medical marijuana laws. So for example, maybe you only operate in Florida, and in Florida currently there is no medical marijuana statute and there is no recreational marijuana statute. But your employee was in Colorado on vacation, and they come back to work and they get a random test and they're positive for marijuana. And so the employee says, well, I was out in Colorado and it's legal there. So if you haven't addressed that in your policy, it's going to be difficult to deal with that situation. So it is very important that all companies today that are operating as a drug-free workplace program, if they have not updated their policies with regard to medical marijuana and recreational marijuana, they should do so immediately. And it's important to note that so far in every court decision out there that has dealt with either medical or recreational marijuana, if the company had a strong drug-free workplace policy and they addressed those issues in their policy, and they had an employee that tested positive, that test stands up, and whatever those adverse consequences were to that employee will hold up in court when you have a good drug-free workplace policy.
And that led right back to the title. Why we want to make sure your business doesn't go up in a puff of smoke. That's a very relevant topic there. So Joe, thank you for sharing with us today. I invite you to join us next time where we talk about DOT regulations, compliance, drug-free workplace policies related to DOT regulated companies. And make sure you join us at www.nationaldrugscreening.com to see some of our other video blogs and see what we have coming up next. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.